think Magic wanted to be friends with Larry Bird. He wanted to be friends with him on the World Invitational Tournament, and Larry just wasn't very receptive. I think he wanted to be friends with him during the Final Four. Larry wouldn't even go over and shake his hand. So now Magic's saying, well, what's with this guy? Everybody loves me. How come you don't love me? And then they get to their rookie year, the first time they play each other. Well, they have a very hard foul. And they have to be separated a little bit. And Magic's like, all right, well, the heck with this guy. You don't like me? Fine. All right, good. I don't like you either.
You know, he's a very competitive player, and I'm a very competitive player, and we go head to head, and we go for blood almost.
The vibe was nasty. It was ugly. It was, we didn't like each other.
I'm the one that did all that, to tell you the truth. I just don't want to be hanging around him. I mean, that was my main competition.
And he couldn't escape the memory of losing to him in 1979.
Oh, it ate at him bad that he didn't win that national title against Magic. That was something, it just burned him.
It was one thing for them to be in the 79 championship. Magic had the better team. Everybody agreed with that. Magic had the better game. Fine. Now you get to the pros. Larry has this incredible year.
Bird, a runner. It's good!
But there he is, watching in a club while Magic Johnson wins a championship, and he's thinking, all right, I'm behind 2-0 now.
I watched that game, and I couldn't believe it. I always wanted to play at that level.
But what Bird couldn't possibly have known was that he had inspired Magic's performance when he was named Rookie of the Year earlier that same day.
The PR person from the Lakers says, hey, Irvin, the Rookie of the Year voting has come out. And Magic says, okay, well, who won? He said, well, Larry Bird won. And Magic says, well, was it close? And he said, oh, no. He went out that day, yes, to try to win the NBA championship, but also to prove it to one Larry Bird. You know what? I should have been Rookie of the Year.
Even though I won the championship, I still wanted to win Rookie of the Year, too.
He won that championship. I was pissed. I want him one.
But even after he had won one the next year, his obsession only grew deeper.
I'd get up in the mornings and see what he did, because their games came on late. Then you look at the box score. I had to have him there for some reason. Like a crutch, somebody I can compare myself to.
I hated what was being said, that Larry was better than me, and I'm just a guy who can control the game. My first 4 or 5 years, that bothered me a lot. I didn't tell nobody it bothered me, but it did.
Their competitive dislike emerged from a greater truth, that on the court, they were doppelgangers. Team-oriented stars who cared about winning above all else. Basketball savants who fused the substance of the 60s with the style of the 70s to create a new and exciting yet selfless way to play the game in the 1980s.
Yeah, I'm gonna pass. But I'm gonna pass in a way to make you look like a jackass. They were so similar in the way they competed. I mean, they were two halves of the same brain.
Same craziness to excel.
I seen that first couple days I was with him.
Basketball IQ off the chart.
Seen the game a little different, most players.
Playing the game the right way was everything.
A lot of guys can just score, a lot of guys can just rebound. A lot of guys can just make plays. We can do it all.
Larry and Magic could control the game with 12 shots. It was amazing. They'd be 7 for 12. They'd have 20 points, 15 rebounds, and 12 assists. And you go, man, the guy shot the ball 12 times, was the best player on the court by far.
But I think it was tough at first. I don't think either one of them wanted to recognize that they had any equal anywhere in what they did. But they sure as hell didn't want to recognize that their equal happened to be that other guy.
That's why we hated each other, too, because we knew we were mirrors of each other.
I think for a while, the two of them had to come to grips with that.
They had begun changing the game, but with continued low television ratings and tape-delayed finals, the league was struggling to get the word out. When the NBA and CBS signed a new TV deal before the 82-83 season, the rescue plan was simple. Sell more Bird and Magic, and sell them not just as ball players, but as arch-rival characters in their own dramatic saga.
You got this slick Showtime African-American guy out west, and you got the lunch bucket, floppy-haired white guy with the bruises all over his body. It's central casting. It's perfect.
I mean, this was like made in heaven. In 1979, this idea of Magic and Bird was created, and so that was sort of a no-brainer. we'd have a doubleheader. It would be the Celtics playing first and the Lakers playing second, and that's the way we did it.
And when the Celtics and Lakers both reached the finals just a year into the new TV deal in 1984, it appeared the superstar investment was about to pay off.
It was huge. It was probably the biggest moment the NBA had up to that point. You had Boston and LA, East against West. It had all the elements of a classic showdown.
Including what was becoming the most inescapable element of all.
Did we know that the blacks and whites were lining up, the whites with the Celtics, the blacks with... Of course we knew that.
Even in the Celtics' own backyard.
They land at Logan Airport at the '84 finals. He's getting accosted by various people who are telling him Larry's going to take him down. But this one older African-American gentleman comes up to me and goes, "Magic, I want to wish you well. Good luck. I want you to crush the Celtics." And he said, "Oh, well, where are you from?" He said, "Well, I'm from Boston." And he said, "You're from Boston and you're rooting for the Lakers? I thought everybody here was crazy about the Celtics." And he looked right at me and he said, "Now, why would I root for those white boys?"
Boston, after all, was a town still scarred by the ugly busing crisis of the mid-'70s. A violent period of urban unrest during which white had been pitted against black. The resulting taint on the city nationally, coupled with a Boston roster littered with white players, affirmed to many black Americans that the Celtics were not the team for them.
Even today, people said, "You played with the Celtics, and you know I hated you at that time. You know, I wanted Magic to win. I didn't want that damn Larry Bird to win. We had all these black players, but they looked at us because we had Larry Bird leading us as a team that was white."
They were perfect archetypes for what was becoming the biggest story in sports. But for the real-life players, the narrative was much simpler.
It's finally going to happen. We get to go head-to-head again. It's just a matter of rolling that ball out there and let's get it on.
Welcome then to the Boston Garden and the start of the NBA World Championship Series. I'm Brent Musburger. In each of the last 4 NBA World Championship Series, either Magic or Bird has competed. But this is the first time that the two have gone head-to-head for the title.
Man, we jumped out on them that first game, and we won in Boston.
And with less than a minute to go in Game 2, the Lakers were closing in on a commanding series lead.
From that point on, things began to crumble.
Down to 9 seconds. Magic holding the ball. Magic trying to work on Maxwell. Magic has still got it down to 2 seconds. 1 second. He's going to have to shoot it. He doesn't get it off. He doesn't get it off.
Cheesy Johnson dribbling the timeout. What are you doing?
The Lakers regained their stride in Game 3, only to be rudely knocked off it again in Game 4.
And now let's watch it. Cooper and the Celtics, and now the bench is empty.
When Kurt Rambis got taken out, we started fighting instead of playing.
Kareem swings the elbow, and now is yelling at Larry Bird. Jaw to jaw.
And it made us realize we were not mentally tougher than the Celtics.
Magic's just not himself.
To be sure they won't let the time run out as they did in Game 2. Harris steals the ball, and the Celtics call a timeout.
There were a number of places where, Irvin didn't do what people expected him to do.
Tied at 123. He misses the first. Johnson misses them both. Celtics want a timeout. Despondent, Magic Johnson goes to the bench. Bird turnaround, hits.
Game 5 went to the Celtics. Game 6 to the Lakers. It was like 1979 all over again, down to 1 game for Bird and Magic.
If everybody had to look at it, probably would have said this is going to be a 7-game series.
No, I thought we'd sweep them in 4, but just went a little bit longer. Now we just have to do it in 7.
That's the only time I ever felt that. There ain't no way they're walking out here with a win.
Magic Johnson.
No way.
Lakers had several chances, and here's Larry Bird shucking down the court. Bird. How does he do it? Now Johnson with the ball. The Lakers trying to cut it to one. And he loses it. The Boston Celtics are the NBA World Champions.
I pride myself in being the guy who's going to win it for us and deliver under pressure. And it didn't happen.
I hope he was hurting. Hope it killed him. He made some bad plays down the stretch, and nobody in there was happier than me. You know, not only winning the game makes you feel good, but just knowing the other guy's suffering, and you know he was.
I remember after the game that both he and I were in the showers crying and stayed in there for about 35, 40 minutes. It was hard because not only had we lost to the Boston Celtics, he had lost to his nemesis, Larry Bird.
I think he just made me dislike him more, you know, because he was that good. And I think you be jealous. You're jealous a little bit.
Larry, does this get you even with Magic for what happened between Michigan State and Indiana State all those many years ago?
Yeah, we're professionals now, but I won this one for Terre Haute.
Well, it was a big deal, and I remember asking Quinn Buckner about it afterwards. They had a celebration in downtown Boston after they won the championship, and, you know, it was unusual for Larry to have these little outbursts, as Quinn would call them. But, you know, about 11:30 at night, finally he turned to Quinn, he goes, "I got him. I finally got him." And he was talking about Magic.
The league was rejoicing too. Game 7 of the '84 series was one of CBS's highest-rated telecasts of the year, and the highest-rated game the NBA had ever produced.
All of a sudden, whether it was at CBS or Madison Avenue, the sports writers around the country became phenomena. What is happening here? The absolute foundation in this resurgence was the Celtics and the Lakers, Larry Bird and Magic Johnson.
But Magic was in no mood to bask in the accomplishment.
I took a media beating. Tragic Magic. This is why we say Larry Bird is better. It's probably the first time ever in my life I was depressed. And I didn't want people to see me. It was something I never dealt with in my life.
That particular series, that championship series, redefined his whole career because he never stopped working after that.
Magic was on a mission to prove to himself and the world that with the ball in his hands, he was still the one in control. And after his Lakers ran through the '85 season, he quickly got what he wanted, another shot at Bird and the Celtics.
They won the East, we won the West. So it's like everybody just get ready, sit back, and let's enjoy it.
But that smile belied the intensity of the clash that awaited.
If I had a glass of water and any of those guys had been on fire, I would have drank the water and watched them.
They called us, chokers and sissies. We didn't like that, and they thought less of us. I knew they did.
In '85, we played them 4 times in exhibition season for some reason. I don't know why they scheduled that. By the 4th game, there was an all-out brawl.
They call this one of the greatest rivalries in all of sport, the Celtics and the Lakers. And if that is true, it is the most one-sided rivalry in all of sports. 8 times these two have met for the NBA championship, and 8 times the Celtics have won.
At guard, in his 6th year from Michigan State, at number 32, Magic Johnson.
But in the '85 finals, Magic changed the script. Over 6 grueling games, he masterfully controlled the pace with all-around brilliance.
He has a triple-double again.
Behind their point guard, the Lakers finally knocked out the Celtics, winning the clinching game in the Boston Garden.
3 in 6 years, LA comes to Boston and wins the world title.
Redemption for one Magic Johnson. It's a long year last year to wait for this moment right now.
Magic had evened the score with Bird on the NBA floor. But the significance of their rivalry and their relationship was still just taking hold.
You crazy. I said, you're crazy. I'm not shooting no commercial with Larry. So I said, okay, what, we're gonna shoot it in LA?
I would never went to LA to film it.
Well, where are we gonna shoot it?
You want to shoot a commercial, come to my house.
I was like, oh, no. One stoplight. I thought, man, I think the plan was, I'm gonna go here, I'm gonna do grocery food, and I'm trying to get up out of here. My plan was that.
Even after Converse had convinced Magic and Bird to film a sneaker ad together in the summer of '85, a question remained. How would the two hated rivals on the court get along off of it?
I don't know how he's gonna react. I don't know how I'm gonna react. We didn't even shake hands, so how are we gonna do a commercial together?
The ad was to be filmed at the home Bird had built for his mom. It featured a full-length basketball court, the day's first location.
So they say, okay, you're playing one-on-one, and I'm looking at Larry, and he's looking at me like, is this real? Are we playing? Because, you know, this is Magic and Bird.
I could just hear Larry, you know, starting in on, well, you bring it to the basket, and I'm going to send it 30 rows up.
So the guy was like, no, not like that. A fun game. We were both like, oh, okay. Like, like you can see this relief coming over both of our faces.
That brief détente led to the next stage, dialogue.
We sat down next to each other. How was your summer? Oh, it's going good. How was yours? It's going great. He said, man, it's a nice spread you got.
And he's asked me, is this where you play? I said, yeah, I play here if it's not windy. If it's raining or windy, I go to the gym. But this is where I do all my work.
I see that tractor. You work on the tractor? He said, man, I work on this tractor every day. Larry Bird work on a tractor? He said, yeah.
It's just them two walking and talking, and every once in a while they'd stop and one of them would say something, and then they'd start laughing.
Then they said, okay, break, it's lunch break time. I was going to my trailer. He said, no, my mother has prepared lunch for us up at the house.
We went up to the house and we sat down there and we talked, and my mom, my brothers thought the world of him.
His mother was so nice, making sure I had enough to eat. I just saw my mother. It was crazy.
He charmed her. You can see it. But that's Magic. He makes everybody feel welcome and warm, and he's a con man.
And while Magic charmed Georgia Bird, it was someone else who intrigued her son.
He met Irvin at lunch.
Irvin is a good dude. I like Irvin a lot better than Magic.
I was just so happy to finally be Irvin with him, because Magic was like, I don't know if I want to get to know this guy. But Irvin got a chance to talk about family, how he grew up. We just became two relaxed guys, just talking.
That day was great. It was a great day. Beautiful day.
Still, for Bird, ever the competitor, that's all it was, just one day.
Magic thinks the next year, okay, well, now we're great friends, so, you know, after the game, we're going to go out, we're going to have a beer, and Larry's like, no, you're right. I know you better. You're a good guy, but I still don't want anything to do with you.
He's a happy-go-lucky guy. If me and him got to be really good friends, go out on the court, he could still play the same game. I couldn't. I mean, that's just the way it is.
But when the ad hit the airwaves, for others, the perception changed.
I saw those limousines going through the cornfields, and I said, no. They didn't sell themselves out.
I heard Converse made a pair of Bird shoes for last year's MVP. Yep. But they made a pair of Magic shoes for this year's MVP.
Okay, Magic, show me what you got.
Well, this is really a business thing.
The Bird shoe, the Magic shoe.
And maybe that's where the business thing started to get bigger and began to trump who they both really were.
It polarized the whole idea of lunch bucket versus Hollywood. white versus black. Just cemented all the differences between them.
Kids weren't wearing black gym shoes because they didn't want to be associated with the Larry Bird camp. You wore your white Converse.
The basketball rivals had morphed into cultural warriors, and race, more than ever, had become an unavoidable part of the conversation.
Yo!
But nothing about Bird and Magic had ever been as simple as black and white.
One of the big reasons this rivalry became so emblematic of so many things is because it was an easy dichotomy for people to understand. But it's crazy to simplify it as saying white people like Bird and black people like Magic because 13% of the country is black, but it wasn't like 87% of basketball fans preferred the Celtics.
Who's your favorite basketball player? Magic Johnson. Who's your favorite movie star? Eddie Murphy. Pino, all you ever talk about is nigga this and nigga that. And all your favorite people are so-called niggas. It's different. Magic, Eddie, Prince are not niggas. I mean, they're not black. I mean, let me explain myself.
Has the N-word ever been used by a white person to describe Irvin? I doubt it.
But as Magic enjoyed his image as a crossover star, it was Bird, the one-time great white hope, who had further emerged as the polarizing racial figure, due in part to that era's increasingly conservative political climate.
The rolling back institutionally of the achievements of the civil rights movement were going on apace from about 1975 on. But the triumph of the movement that rolled it back took place in the 1980s. And I think there was people who were very aware in the black community of what was going on. And I think there was a lot of sublimated frustration. And I think one of the ways it got sublimated was into basketball. And I think Larry, through no fault of his own, was the receptacle within which the lingering resentments somehow floated.
And after Bird led the Celtics to the championship in 1986, his third in the pros, winning his third straight MVP award in the process, the resentment grew.
I always felt that the press was biased in favor of Larry Bird. It always felt to me like they were gonna make Larry the hero. You know, you'd see somebody score and Larry would be in a cast in a suit on the bench and they'd say, Larry Bird made that possible a couple weeks ago when he told that guy he could do it and he just did it. They gonna get his motherfucker the assist and he not in the game?
Not to be racist, but we have a white guy who's the best in the world. It's predominantly a black sport now, and you got a guy like Larry Bird who can't run, who can't jump, but can do everything out there.
I don't mean nothing to me. It don't mean anything to me. It never has. I don't know why. I mean, am I doing something wrong here?
Bird may have sought to avoid the conversation entirely, but the more he won, the less he could escape it.
Now there's a steal by Bird. Underneath the DJ, lays it in. What a play by Bird.
In 1987, after Boston beat the Detroit Pistons to advance to the finals for the fourth straight year, Pistons rookie Dennis Rodman called Bird overrated because he was white. His teammate Isaiah Thomas then chimed in with some thoughts of his own.
I think Larry is a very, very good basketball player. I think he's an exceptional talent. But I'd have to agree with Rodman. If he was black, he'd be just another good guy.
I can remember in the locker room, I think it was Jack McMullen came up to me and said, Isaiah just said, boom, 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 boom. And I go, so?
He didn't care. He didn't care. Everybody else around him cared very deeply in the days and weeks as it turned out ahead.
I mean, the media made it out like it was something. But it didn't matter to me what Isaiah or Dennis Rodman said. And it still don't. It has no bearing on what I do in my life.
He doesn't see race. He really doesn't. And he could have. This guy grew up poor, white, in southern Indiana. Southern Indiana, the home, by the way, of the modern Ku Klux Klan. How he managed not to be affected by the cultural milieu that he grew up in is, I think, a miracle. To me, it's inexplicable.
When I was in about 6th or 7th grade, I couldn't wait till school to be over because I knew over on the courts, the waiters from the hotel would be over there. They were black, older, and they let me play. You know, I always looked at that as I got an opportunity to play against a black man, and they treated me good. I couldn't wait to play against the best, and at that time, they were the best.
And in 1987, as Bird vied with Magic to be the best, the flap over Isaiah Thomas's racially fueled remarks forced Bird to address his least favorite topic at the worst possible time.
I had to go to a press conference when I was in LA trying to get ready to play the Lakers and tell people I didn't care, this don't bother me.
The main thing is if the statements or whatever was said doesn't bother me, I don't think it should bother any of us.
From playing all year trying to get back to the finals and play against Magic, this was a distraction.
Bird was facing off against Magic for the third time in 4 years, and if their relationship had softened, the determination to beat each other had not. As Game 4 proved, the level of competition between them was higher than ever.
Bird played awesome down the stretch of that game.
Trailing 2-1 in the series, the Celtics were down by 1 point in the final minute of the game. But Larry Bird wouldn't be easily vanquished.
Open his age. Bird goes for three.
With 7 seconds left, though, the Lakers still had life. 3 years earlier in the '84 finals, Magic had flubbed a similar situation. But this was a different Magic, one with a whole new bag of tricks.
My man switched to Kareem, and Kevin McHale jumped out to me. As soon as I saw Kevin, I said, oh, I'm taking him.
You know, Magic puts it on the floor, a couple head and shoulder fakes, and he raised up in the air. And there was nobody that was going to get that shot.
I remember after they called timeout thinking, there's still a shot here. Celtics may still win this game.
Well, they set up a great play. Bird walked Worthy all the way up, forced the denial all the way up.
We've done it before. Clear everybody out, go to the ball, and break to the corner.
He caught it here, and as he caught it, all he had to do was turn. He just turned, and he just let this thing go.
Bird fires it.
Got a wide open look, couldn't believe it.
And I'm standing right there, it is straight as an arrow.
Dead on.
And the Lakers have won.
They were lucky because it was right on line.
He looked at me like, how did you ever leave me that wide open?
You gotta be kidding me. Changed the whole series.
The Lakers won the series in 6, and in the aftermath of a year in which Magic had won his first MVP, the rivalry suddenly took on a new tone.
Magic's just a great basketball player. He's the best I've ever seen, you know. Unbelievable. I don't know what to say.
I was shocked that he said it, because I thought to myself, maybe this is the beginning of a new era that's not going to include him. It was the passing of the torch a little bit.